Welcome to another episode of Heated Conversations. We go all the way up to Wisconsin, where it might be getting close to being frigid cold. We go to the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. We have head coach Jessie DeZiel on the podcast today. She's going to talk about her program, talk a little bit about her journey, what got her into coaching, what things that she's excited about for the upcoming season. And I'm glad that you decided to tune in. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the new episodes coming up. Also, give it a like, give it a share, leave some comments, any questions like that you would want either for me to ask someone else or anything else to kind of talk about with future guests. Well, again, thank you for tuning in. Welcome, Jessie, to the podcast. Jessie, thank you for joining the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Now, it's almost Christmas time, right? We're about half a week away. Well, actually a week away. It's Tuesday, the week before Christmas. Is it cold in Wisconsin? Is it snowing yet where you're at? What is the weather like?
Well, we've actually been pretty lucky this winter. There currently is no snow on the ground, which is a little surprising. It's been in the 40s. This week it's dropping a little bit lower than that. So snow's right around the corner. But it's been prolonged a little bit longer this year than it has in the past.
Yeah. No, I'm from, the Midwest, especially from Minnesota, which I know you are as well. And so this weather is not as bad. Me living in Texas now, I'm wearing a sweatshirt just thinking about how cold, 40s is, because we don't really get that too often. And when we do, Texas literally shuts down. I think you can't even get into the border of Texas. They literally have this just big protective thing where you can't even fly into Texas because it's so cold. And so, I think in it, weather and seasons and stuff brings, sometimes some people want that. Sometimes people want to get away from a place like Texas where it might be hot and you don't really get to experience seasons, and being able to have that, growing up in those areas, what are some of the things that you enjoy about the Midwest?
Yeah, honestly, like you said, the seasons, I love all of the seasons. I know winter can be a little bit colder, but it only lasts for a couple months. And when you have the fall where the leaves are changing colors and the weather's perfect, it ends up being worth it to me. And just different things that you can do in every single season that there is. And I know for us and for gymnastics fans, winter time is when season is. So you stay a little bit more busy during the winter time with gymnastics, which is really nice. And then summer obviously is a little bit more laid back and a little bit more fun, and you get to enjoy that more. So
yeah, no, I think that's wonderful, wonderful. Now, I have a couple questions for you. And, I kind of introed a little bit talking about weather, but these are my true intro questions. So if you could have anybody cook you a meal, what would you have them cook you, and who would you have make you that meal?
yeah. All right. So I did gymnastics at Nebraska, and I became very close to Francis Allen. He was the men's coach there for a really long time. And he's one person that can cook just about anything. Seafood is like his specialty. So that's what I would say for like the one person if I could have him cook for me for the rest of my life, I would. And I've always tried to get him to open a restaurant, but it hasn't worked yet. And I'm sure it won't work, but he's an amazing cook. So that's the one person that I would have cook for me. And honestly, anything like seafood, he's really good at. So anything along those.
So what is one specific like seafood dish that you remember him making that you really enjoy?
Salmon is always a big one. And crawfish. He's really good at crawfish as well. So those are two that I've always really liked. And he always used to make a lot of salmon like before meets when I was at Nebraska.
Yeah. No, I think that's kind of cool because especially being in Nebraska, I kind of wonder what his background was, where a lot of times people, well, you can get fish and crawfish and stuff like everywhere, but I feel like sometimes it's more geographical, right? Being in the South or near water and stuff like that, you have more experience cooking those things and you're
Yeah.
really getting good at seafood, right? And so it makes me a little curious what his background is and where he's probably from to really have, that be his specialty.
Yeah, I know. Well, he is from Nebraska and he gets all of his seafood like shipped in from the South. But he's also a vegetarian, so he really can only eat fish most of the time, like no meat. So he's just become like an expert, like seafood cooker.
Ah, that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. Makes a lot of
Yep.
sense. My second question is if you could see anyone live in concert, dead or alive, who would you go see and who would you take with you?
think I don't this question is a good one. But I know for me, I've always looked up to my grandma a lot growing up. And her favorite singer was Elvis. So I feel like if I could go back in time and like go to an Elvis concert with her and like enjoy that, I feel like I would absolutely love it.
Yeah, and tell me about her love for Elvis and also the relationship that you have with her and what made her so special.
Yeah. I know my grandparents on my dad's side there, I was super close to him growing up. Spent a lot of weekends at the cabin with them. Um, they came to just about every single gymnastics meet when I was younger and they were in Minnesota. They were always there. They made it to a couple out in Nebraska. They came to my graduation in Nebraska. When I was coaching at Illinois, they made it out to a competition there to see my house. And they've actually made it to Eau Claire to see my house here as well. So just kind of always so supportive and someone who always sees the positive side of everything, no matter if it was not a great meet as a coach or a gymnast, always like, oh, that was so good. And just always super encouraging, super positive, and always proud of me no matter what. So for that, like I've always looked up to her for that and hope that I can like be an impact in people's life like that when I'm older and as I continue to get older, continue to be that kind of person who can see the bright side of things and encourage people to keep going. And just because something is hard or you're struggling doesn't mean that you failed. And to have those people that are really in your court pushing you.
And in our, a lot of times in gymnastics, we call it the gymnastics family, and kind of having conversations and having questions that kind of talk about, personal things like family, I think brings a connection. And instead of it just being something where we just say, hey, we're a gymnastics family, but not really have your own personal connection. I think it's cool to see that, a parent or a grandparent or someone who's close or a sibling, the relationship you have and the meaning behind it, right? And all the things that they were a part of. Because a lot of times you would expect your parents to try to make it to your sporting events and stuff like that. But grandparents don't necessarily have to, they could they're not, your overseer unless that was the the situation you were in. But sometimes too, you would think, they may be retired at that place depending on where they are in life and they might be doing their own thing. They may not have the freedom or they may have the freedom. And having, people that are close. And I like that you mentioned that you'd want to do something that she would like, right? It talks about the heart that you have for people. And it sounds, to me that, you're not a selfish person, someone who really cares about others and thinks about others, which I think is really important in the process of recruiting, knowing that someone will have my back and is willing to be able to do the necessary things to see me be successful at what I do.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for saying that. That's,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think all throughout my entire career, I think I've always done things for other people and I don't know, it's just kind of who I am as a person and I would rather make I would rather see other people succeed and do well and like see their happiness and continue to like help them because if somebody else is happy, I'm happy too. So that's kind of how I've always looked at it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And can you talk about throughout your gymnastics journey, kind of let's go back to when Jessie started as a gymnast, whenever that time was. And can you walk us through the different moments, but also those people who did things for you similar to what you are looking to do for your current athletes?
Yeah. So I started gymnastics when I was 2 with my sister. We started at TCT and we were there all the way until we graduated. And I would say one person who really like I do my best to like mimic her in the way she coached, in the way she built relationships with athletes, but also at the same time held them accountable. Was one of my coaches in club, Sammy, still follows up with all of her athletes today. Just really special and knows that I can reach out anytime to her and that she would help me with anything that I would ever need, but also just taught me so much. And, gymnastics it's hard sometimes. And she always had a way of making us laugh and making us enjoy it, but like also it was still tough. But like she had that personality that she could get everything that she could out of every single athlete, but also make sure that they're still having fun and enjoying it. And that's one thing that I hope that I can continue to do as a coach. And if I've learned anything, that's one thing that I want to continue to get out of athletes is as much as I can get out of them and push them to what they are capable of. Because a lot of them are capable of way more than they think they are. Um, but at the same time, keeping it light and having fun and making sure they enjoy the process. And she's one person that taught me that really well. And then as I went on in my gymnastics career, I was a gymnast at Nebraska. And I would say Dan Kendig is kind of the other person that I've always looked up to as a coach. And his was just always his positive energy, his positive vibes. It was everything that he like. It was so funny. It would be like I remember my dad asking these questions to Dan when I was on the team. Hey, Dan, do you think they can beat this team? Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't we be able to beat them? Just like always positive and always believing in us as athletes and honestly people. And still he also follows up with all of his athletes still to this day. I know I get phone calls from him often, and I know so do my teammates. Just like he was a part of our lives for a little bit of time, but it seems like forever because he's always helping us, talking to us. And I know for me, I'm going into my 3rd season as a head coach at Eau Claire. He came my 1st season just to like watch a practice and coach me and help me and tell me what I can do better. He came to a meet. He did it last year. He's following us. Like it's really fun to have that as a mentor in my life and somebody that I look up to and want to mimic some of the things that he's done for me also. So those are the 2 coaches that have really, really, really made an impact in my life.
Yeah. And I think that's very cool to know and cool to see because in life, no matter really anybody can make an impact, but the people that we're around the most, it's nice when we have those positive impacts on us. And especially once we're not in their presence or in their sphere of direct influence, where it's more tangible that yet they're still reaching out and they're extending the courtesy that they gave us when we were under their care or their guidance, right? And still becoming really the mentor and walking through life because it's super important, I think, to find those people and finding those people who really support us, and especially in something that you're doing. You had mentioned going into your 3rd season being head coach, and he was a head coach at Nebraska for a long time and has a lot of experience, right? And someone you can go and talk, life about and, ways to be able to help grow the team. I think it's very special. And even to have in club, someone who is super impactful to you and who you are still in relationship with.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like those relationships nowadays don't come around very often. So I feel like I always cherish them a lot. And I hope that my athletes now will be able to cherish those moments and I'll be able to do my best to keep in contact with them because I know it's a lot of athletes over a lot of years, but it's so important and I know how important it is to me. So I want to continue to do that for my athletes as well.
Yeah. Now, can you kind of talk about when was the time that you decided that coaching was something you wanted to do? And at what level did you want to coach? Did you always envision yourself being a head coach at a gymnastics program?
Yeah. So when I was at Nebraska, they had a club team in the evening that would train, and I decided to take my fifth year and be a student coach. And honestly, I didn't know if I would like coaching. I didn't know if it was for me. I was like, all right, I'll try it and finish my schooling here. And I ended up coaching like Nebraska as well as the club in the evening. And I actually coached the level threes in at the club, and it was so fun. I loved it. And I loved coaching the Nebraska girls too. But after that, I was kind of like, man, I really like this. Like, you can make an impact in so many people's lives. You can make them, train them, get them to learn things, lessons, kind of just like my coaches did when I was younger. And so from that moment on, I knew I wanted to coach. It was just like where to get started. And that was probably the hardest part for me was like I'm a family person too. So I love being close to home. I love being near my family. So I was like, man, where do I start? So, after I did that at Nebraska, I applied at Ball State and I actually coached there for 2 years as an assistant. And from there, I didn't realize, I guess I never really thought, oh yeah, one day I'll be a head coach. I kind of was just like so in the moment and I loved coaching and that's all I knew. Um, and then from there, I went to Illinois and I was an assistant there for a year and same thing. Like I was just like, I wonder where this coaching thing is going to take me. And
Yeah.
when I was at Illinois, I kind of was a little bit more open. Like, yeah, one day, like I want to be a head coach. I didn't know where. It was in my mind that one day that's what I wanted to do, just because I love the sport of gymnastics and I want to give back to it, because I learned a lot of things from it as well. Um, and then I took a little break and COVID happened. And I went back home with my family and I actually stayed with my grandma and grandpa for, I don't know, a year, helping them during COVID. And then after that, I was like, all right, time to get back into it. So I went back to Nebraska as a volunteer. Um, and then I came to Eau Claire and it has honestly, it's been one of the greatest things ever. For me, I am a younger coach. I know I'm not like I'm still learning so much, which is the reason why it's so nice to have those mentors that I can call and ask, like, hey, we have this conflict. I've never had to deal with this before. Like, what would you do? Or they're not hitting their like pressure sets. Like, what should I do? And just kind of fun to pick their brains on different things of how I can get the team to be a little bit better and to perform better. Especially at the beginning, it was a lot to learn as a head coach, and it's a
Right.
lot different than being an assistant coach for sure. So it was just, I was the first couple years, the first 2 years were really just a whirlwind, and I was really trying to figure out like, all right, what does our program stand for? What kind of athletes do we want to bring in? What kind of people do we want to bring in? All of those kinds of things are kind of really what we focused on hard. And knowing that all of those decisions were mine, like I really had to sit down and figure out what I did want Eau Claire Gymnastics to be in the future.
Yeah. No, and I think, it's a cool journey for you to be able to find somewhere that you're able to get all the things that you really love, to be close to home, be somewhere that you're feeling fulfilled and
Mhm.
being somewhere where you can really create a legacy of your own, right? And as a gymnast, you created that, but being able to create your legacy as a coach, but also to help other people and walk alongside them and create their own stories, right? I had another guest kind of talk about that, their journey is really the athlete's journey. They can't have their own journey as a coach unless the athlete has a journey, right? And having that mindset that you're coming alongside them to help them with their goals is a great, great place to do that and to be close, to family, which, you're probably less than an hour and a half or less than 2 hours away from your family, which is nice, where they can come see you, you can go see them, and to be able to have that peace of mind that you need, especially when the season gets long, right? And a lot of the recruiting and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, can you talk about where Eau Claire is located, and then talk about what, you know, the city has to offer, and academically, what does Eau Claire have to offer?
Yeah. Okay. So Eau Claire is about 90 miles east of Minneapolis. It's super easy to get to. It's like one highway and you're here. Um, and then as far as like our university goes, so the university is about 10,000 students, and we're kind of known for our business and health science field. The Mayo Clinic Hospital is actually a sponsorship of our university, so that's a huge benefit for those students that want to study something in the science field. And then Eau Claire offers a lot of research opportunities, which a lot of students really enjoy once they get into them. And overall, the campus is, I'd say it's a pretty close-knit campus. It's on a hill, and it's Eau Claire, the city itself is a beautiful city. But our campus is on a hill, so half of it is on top of the hill and the other half is on the bottom of the hill. So it's like I know our freshmen always say they love it because on upper campus is where the dorms and it's like the athletic building, and then everything academically happens on lower campus. So it kind of splits up their social life from their school life a little bit.
Yeah.
And they tend to really, really like that. But I know you walk to class and you're like walking through wooded areas. The river runs right alongside it. And then there's just a lot to do in Eau Claire. As far as the city, there's a lot of live music all the time. Country Jam is also here in the summer. A lot of people will go tubing down the river in the summer. There's a lot of like hiking trails that you can bike, hike, run, walk, whatever you want to do. And overall, Claire's a pretty younger community. So you see a lot of younger families always out and about. And it's a really, really fun younger city vibe that I've really come to enjoy Eau Claire a lot.
Yeah, and I think, it's nice to have that place where you feel at home, the athletes can kind of feel at home, and
Mhm.
that especially being young, having it be a younger town where, as if you haven't, started your own family, or, when you start your own family and stuff like that, people kind of feel like they have people they can relate to, that, understand things at the same time, where sometimes in the communities you might be at, they might just be at different ages. And so it doesn't seem like there's people you can relate to that your family can go and hang out with. And having a
Mhm.
community that can, I think it's wonderful, right?
Yeah. Eau Claire is a very close community too. A lot of support for Eau Claire athletics. I mean, it's like us here. That's really it. So it's kind of, a lot of fans, a lot of people know about athletics here, and want to support us. So it's a really awesome community.
Now, what are, you know, being in that part of the country. Now, Wisconsin doesn't have any Division 1 programs, correct, for gymnastics?
Correct.
Okay, so what division, for those who may not know, is Eau Claire, and what conference are you guys a part of?
So Eau Claire is a Division 3 school, and we are a part of the WIAC. So we go against all of the other division. Our conference is the other Division 3 UW schools, and then there's 3 Minnesota schools that are Gustavus, Hamlin, and Winona State that are also in our WIAC conference.
And can you talk about what it's like competing there and in that conference, and then also what it's like competing at Eau Claire? What does the fan base look like? Is there a lot of support with even student athletes with other sports and athletics?
Yeah. As far as competing at Eau Claire, our meets are super fun. I remember when I first got hired and I had our first competition, they have bleachers set up all over the arena, and the students, like after we got done with vault and bars kind of in the same area, all the students started to get up, and I was like, oh my gosh, no, they're leaving. Maybe they only like to watch vault and bars. But like they actually like traveled with us and followed us to beam to watch us on beam. So like the student athletes support each other really, really well here. And honestly, the students support each other really well here as well. I always have different student groups emailing me, reaching out, like, what can we do to get involved with the gymnastics team? What do you need from us at a meet kind of thing? So, and then as far as like our community coming to our gymnastics meets, there's a like a YMCA club gymnastics team here. So some of our athletes coach there. So they have relationships with some of the younger gymnasts there. So they'll always come and watch the college gymnasts, their coaches that coach them, which is creates a really cool environment, honestly, to have that.
Yeah.
Super fun. So we always get a lot of those younger gymnasts as well, which is fun because I know when I was a younger kid, I would always want to go to the University of Minnesota meets and watch them compete. So it kind of creates that same like, oh my gosh, I get to watch them. Like they're out there. They're one of the college gymnasts.
Right.
Which is really fun. And competing in our conference, so I would say it's super competitive. And honestly, it's getting to be more competitive. I feel like the level of gymnastics across the board is going up everywhere.
Yes.
And I would say for Division 3, a lot of I would say about 50% of the athletes that I have at least will make their decision based off their academics. And they know exactly what they want to study. They know like the exact program they want. They've done their research and everything like that. And then like the other 50%, they come and visit and they find whatever, like they find their home at Eau Claire.
Yeah.
So I think I would say more Division 3 athletes sometimes kind of know what they want to study before they go to school. And that's kind of what they look for. And if that school has a gymnastics program, great. And if they don't, they won't do gymnastics.
Yeah.
And then other ones that, won't quite make that Division 1 cut, and they'll be able to compete on a Division 3 team and make an impact. And I mean, they visit the schools and they decide which one feels most like home to them.
Right. And, with Division 3 not offering not academic, but athletic scholarships, is there ways that people can, get some of those resources, like one academic? How is it, for athletes or student athletes to get academic money, and then also in Division 3, is NIL really something that impacts, the Division 3 sphere, at least in gymnastics? Is that something that kids are looking for opportunities, or is that even a conversation that you have with prospect athletes and current athletes?
Yeah. As far as the NIL stuff goes, I would say there's some Division 3 athletes that do it. I think for Division 3, you kind of have to put more into, like, you don't get the companies reaching out to you. You kind of have to put yourself out there and probably get told no a bunch of times before you get told yes. But if you're willing to do that, something will work out. But I think it's going to start to become a little bit more of a benefit to our athletes in the future. I think it's just so new, and there are Division 3 athletes that have some stuff. I know personally no one on our team has really anything, but I don't think it's been one of their things that they're like, I want NIL money. So they haven't like really tried hard on it. But if we do have athletes that do, I think they eventually get somewhere along within the NIL money. And as far as like academic money goes, at least for Eau Claire, there's a scholarship application that you can fill out. And the biggest scholarship that Eau Claire gives out is you have to have a 3.8 or higher GPA, and you automatically qualify for in-state tuition. So it's a pretty big scholarship. Like it's automatic when you apply. And obviously if you don't have that 3.8, there's it's like 3.6 to 3.79. You get $6,000 off, and then it kind of continues to go down. So most likely gymnasts are really good students. Most likely they always get something. But that's kind of the big one. And then everything else is kind of scholarship application, and you have to apply to it. Kind of gets your name auto fills into the ones you're eligible for, and then most likely you'll get something. It's just a matter of how much.
Yeah. And do you guys have your own facility that you guys practice in? And also, where do you guys compete? Do you guys compete in an arena on campus, or do you guys, because I know there's some who have like some places have their gym and then they can have a divider that opens up that kind of creates the arena.
Yeah, so our facility about 5 years ago used to be up in the athletics building on upper campus. And the girls had to do like vault through a set of double doors. So they had to like roll out the vault every day. Not super convenient, not super safe. So our athletic director moved us off campus. So we actually share a facility. And we're able to go from 12:30 to 4 is usually our practice time. And then the younger kids come in the evening after school. And it's honestly been great to be able to have that relationship with the families that come in the evening for the younger kids. And I know a lot of our girls coach there, so they have those relationships as well. And it's a nice little like side job that they can have with something they feel really comfortable with because they've done it for a long time. And then as far as our competition arena, we compete in our athletics building on upper campus. And it's a big arena. It's actually a really, really nice setup. A lot of bleachers. Usually the bleachers always get really full. January, sometimes we struggle with the bleachers getting full. We have a winter room, so we actually don't have school the month of January. So, which is also really nice for new freshmen when they come to school and then they have to, after Christmas, they have to come back. They only have to worry about gymnastics and season for a month before school starts. So it's not like two things that they have to worry about at once. They can kind of get the hang of season and then add school back in February. But our competition arena is a really nice setup. They got new mats before I got like during COVID. So they're still pretty new. They didn't use them much during COVID. And then we've used them the past 2 years. So they're all still pretty new, but great equipment and a great setup, great environment.
I love it. How many athletes do you carry?
Yeah. Right now we have 18 athletes. And we have one coming in December as well. And I know for me, I do my best to really keep it between the 18 to 22 on my team. I'm I'm the only full-time coach that they have. I have an assistant and she's been with me for the 3 years that I've been here, but she's not full-time. So for me, and I am a relationship person, so it's really hard for me to go into the gym and not talk to somebody or see one of my athletes or, check in with them and see how they're doing. Like that's what I enjoy doing every day. And the more people, the harder it is. And I would rather be close to my athletes and know what's going on and help them through whatever I can versus not know and just have a really big team. So I usually try to keep my numbers a little bit on the lower end, but I mean, 18 to 22 is still a pretty decent number, but I really value the relationships that I have with my athletes. So I do
Yeah,
try my best to keep it a little lower.
I can understand that definitely, especially, as you said, trying to make it more of an intimate relational thing.
Mhm.
Um, and you had mentioned you have one assistant. Can you kind of talk about who that assistant is and their role? And then do you have any other support? Do you have managers that help with anything, or do you have, student assistants, or do you have, I know in Division 3, they hire someone to do spot and stuff like that. Do you have any of those other resources to kind of provide for your athletes?
Yeah, so my assistant, her name is Jordan Eady. She's from Minnesota. Also, she went to Flips Gymnastics and she was a gymnast at Eau Claire. And she actually is a very good spotter. She coaches floor and vault in the gym, and she's able to spot anything that you need on floor or vault, honestly. And she's been a great help over the 3 years that I've been here. And then I also have a volunteer who is also a gymnast here. She is from Minnesota. She went to Perpetual Motion. And she's actually been here my 3 years as well. And she's really evolved as a coach over my 3 years. The first year she moved the hand mat on vault. Last year she coached beam. And then this year she's completely made up all the assignments and is completely taken beam on all by herself. And she's doing a phenomenal job. And the athletes love her. She's just got her master's degree from UW Stout, actually, in counseling. So it's a huge benefit for our team. If there is ever a need for, they need to talk to somebody about whatever it might be, she's always willing and able to help the athletes in whatever they need. So she's been a huge help along that as well. And so she's she's basically our beam coach.
Yeah.
And then we usually each year we have a manager, sometimes two. Just depends on how many people. It's hard to find students that want to volunteer so much time into a team.
Yeah.
This year we have one, and she comes most days to practice. There's like one day that she couldn't come because of classes. But she basically moves the mats on bars, like slides them for the releases, holds them for the dismount, and has really been a great asset to our team as far as like cheering on the girls. Is just like one more person in their court behind them, wanting the best for them. So that's who we kind of have on staff this year. And when I first got here, I coached bars. Bars was like 3 points lower than any other event when I first got here. So I was like, we got to put in some work on bars. That's where I'll go. And then since then, I've kind of just stuck around bars. And honestly, as a Division III coach and a younger coach, I would say that I was not the greatest at spotting. But it's super awesome to have athletes that are like, yeah, you can spot me. And I have learned so much with spotting it specifically on bars with my athletes, because they let me, and they know that I'm not like 100%. But I would say now, like for the most part, I feel pretty much comfortable spotting anything on bars. And also Division III, like a younger coach is, I've never really taught a skill from bottom to top. And I would say like these athletes really they want to get better every year. They want to continue to evolve and learn new skills and all of those things. And it's been like a really good learning experience for me too, because I'm the one that's got to help them. And sometimes I don't know. I've never done the skill. I'm like, I don't know how to teach that. So like I have to do my research and be like, all right, let's start here. Let's do this. Let's do this. So it's really been a great experience being able to like learn how to spot, learn how to coach different skills. And if I don't know how to coach them, like have them go through it with me. And they're really great athletes, and like they allow me to make mistakes or whatever. And it's been a really good experience.
And I think it takes a lot of courage to talk about that, saying that you can admit what you don't know, but at least you're going to be willing to try to find out, right? Because that's super important. Sometimes some people may hesitate, be like, you are in a position where you should know, being a head coach or being in charge of an event, and especially when you're recruiting or you have gymnasts, you're either one, going to have a plethora of different things, or two,
Right.
Being at the level, really at any level, you want to keep growing and developing, right? You don't want to, get stalemate or get bored or get to a place where you feel like you can do more and don't have an opportunity to, right? And so
Yeah, for sure.
it's really cool. And again, talking about character, because a lot of these podcasts, that's what I want people to discover is, they're able to show that they're human, and they're not just the hat that they put on, head coach, and whatever comes systematically with that, right? No, there's a human behind it who's relational, who's can be honest, and yet they're willing to do the work alongside me, instead of just demanding me to do something that they may not even be willing to do.
Yeah. And I feel like that's one thing that I'm thankful for coming to Eau Claire and being a Division III coach, is like the learning process. I feel like I've learned more here as a coach than I have any other place. And I think it's just myself. Like I have to learn it, whether it's a gymnastic skill, whether it's like how to build a team culture or different ideas of what to do with that. Like I'm always looking for different ways to get my team to be better. And I feel like I've just learned so much here, and especially in the gymnastics role. When I was a gymnast, I was taught how to do things way different than they're teaching them now. And like, I feel like it's so important to keep up on that and like understand why they're doing it, and not just be like, all right, do this with your arms here versus arms there. And just telling them, but like actually standing behind it and being like, all right, this is why I want you to do it, is so important, because then they understand it too. And they're going to be more likely to make that correction and do that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what are some of your pillars and your values that you are instilling in your team? And what is the vision that you have for this upcoming 2024 season?
Yeah, I would say some of the pillars that we have on our team are, I would say, like number one is hard work, number two is respect, and number three is integrity. And I mean, those are like the main ones that we talk about, and I feel like they encompass so much. And I will say the girls on the team right now are like, I've finally, like going into my third season, I finally got the girls that want to put in the work, that want to be really, really good. Like we haven't, Eau Claire's never been super great at gymnastics. They've been good, but not like next level gymnastics. And like the team is super hungry. And that's kind of, I want that. Like I want them to always be getting better and like learning new skills and all of those things. But I would say for the most part, those are kind of our three pillars. And like respect your coaches, respect your teammates, respect your professors, respect everyone that helps you, your athletic trainers, say thank you, all of those things. Like it goes a long ways for the people. There's so many working parts to being a college gymnast, and there's so many people that help you along the way that sometimes you don't necessarily take the time to be like, all right, this my athletic trainer just did X, Y, and Z for me. Like I'm going to thank him. And usually he probably doesn't hear that from a lot of athletes. So like trying to be like respectful to every single person that comes along your journey and pay it back to them, even if it's just a thank you. And then the integrity one is a huge one because some days like it might just only be me in the gym as the coach. So like when no one's looking, are you doing the right thing? If I'm not watching, are you gonna count the leap series that you didn't connect on beam? Kind of the like that kind of a principle. And or as a teammate, are you going to watch your teammate count that? If you know she didn't connect it, but I'm not watching, are you going to let her count it? And like really all holding each other accountable in the gym to the goals that we set out to and we want to reach. And I would say we talk about goals every day. It's like usually at the beginning of practice, all right, the goal of today is, and we talk through it before we start the practice. But I would say the long-term goal of this season is to qualify to nationals as a team. And I don't know when the last time that is that they've done it here. And the past 2 years, we've had individuals qualify, but never the entire team. And our freshmen bring a tremendous amount of talent this year. And it is definitely something that this team is able to do, that they can accomplish that. And honestly, I'm just really excited. They've put in a lot of work, and I've never been so excited for an upcoming season than I am for this one.
Yeah, and for those who want to be a part of that and who want to be a part of writing history, especially not remembering or knowing the time that they made nationals and to, be part of that or be part of continuous success at Eau Claire for gymnastics. What are some of the things that you look for in those athletes, when you're recruiting? And then also, who is the person that can be contacted if they're interested in being a part of Eau Claire's program?
Yeah. So I would say for the most part, when we do recruiting, it's always a little bit later than, well, quite a bit later than Division I schools do it. Like we just finished our 2024 class. So basically a year before they get here is when we recruit them. And for Division III athletes, or honestly, any athletes, a lot of athletes haven't hit their peak yet. So for me as a coach, I like to establish that relationship. Like for our 2024 class, say, when we're in season, I like to establish that relationship, and then I like to watch them throughout the summer to see how they can progress, because sometimes maybe they had an injury that took them out for a year, and they're just coming back and they're trying to get their skills back. Well, it was a little late for a Division I school. They didn't want to wait for them. So for us, it's like, let me see the progress. Let me continue to watch you and continue to develop. And what are you going to learn? And I always tell recruits when I talk to them on the phone, like the biggest thing is trying to get you out here for a visit to see if you fit in with the team, to see if you like the university. And let's say if worse came to worse and you got hurt and you could never do gymnastics again, would you still want to stay at Eau Claire? And that's what I try to tell them. The gymnastics part is kind of like a cherry on top, and you get to do the sport you love with a family. But if something happened, would you want to stay here because you love this, because you love the school so much? And usually yeah, I do, they're usually, they fit in great here. And for me, sometimes it's hard to pick out those recruits that I'm like, all right, they're the hard workers. But when you talk to recruits and they're like, yeah, I want to do this and this and this and this, and they list off all these skills they want to learn and how much better they want to get, like, it's really eye-opening. And a lot of recruits sometimes are super quiet and reserved. So when you get those ones that are like, yes, I want to do this, this, and this, it's really like, okay, like she's going to do it. Like she wants it that bad. She's going to get there. But I would say the main way that we kind of do it is follow them over a length of time, get them to camp so that we're able to work with them and they're able to work with us and meet our athletes and see if it's a good fit. All of those things. And the more in-person stuff that we get the opportunity to do with recruits, the better, just because we get to know their personality a little bit more as far as working with them. And if there is any recruits that do want to contact Eau Claire, you can send me an email. I'm the person.
Cool. No, and I think that's very cool. Being able to have access to the head coach, I think is really important. But also the timing, and of when you're recruiting, because again, it's daunting. As soon as a lot of athletes get to that end of their sophomore years, going to the junior years, and then June 15th hit, they're just like, let's go. It's almost like Black Friday shopping, right? And it starts to be like hey, I got to get this done. I got to do this. I got to have my list. I got to do this, and being able to be at the place where, they're giving you the opportunity and letting time be on your side, right? And throughout the summer, and then finally, like, completing that. I think it allows them to relax during the season, because the most stressful part is being uncommitted during season and trying to prove yourself the whole time. And that's what you're trying to do instead of just competing and enjoying the process. It's nice to get it done, or at least someone tells you you have time and just allow you to kind of feel like you get to have the process be on your terms, right?
Right. And I know since I've been here, I've never been one of the coaches to be like, all right, you got to give me a decision by December 1st. I've never put that on an athlete before. Usually it's finding a time to make it out here, and whenever they can make it out here, I'd rather them come on a visit than like put a timeline on when they have to make a decision. And like you said, season is probably already really stressful for recruits, especially if they're not committed. So watching them through season and seeing how they do, and then following up with them after season on where they're at I mean, I don't think that anytime, at least for Division III and for our school, there isn't a correct time to commit to our school. If we just want to establish that relationship and continue to see the progress.
Right. Well, is there any last nuggets or anything like that you want to leave with the listeners and viewers about who Jessie is, or even just about Eau Claire in general and the team that you have moving forward, or even just this upcoming season?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can leave with Eau Claire is a great place. This team is, I think it's sometimes you hear about culture all the time. And I'm sure everybody defines like a great culture differently. But I can truly say like this team here has the culture here is unbelievable with these athletes. They are so close to each other. And they have each other's backs all the time. They help each other in school, practice, whatever it might be. And some of them being so far away from home, it really is a second family. And we do a lot together. So I think it's a great, Eau Claire is a great place to be.
Yeah.
The team is a great family to have. And I know the coaching staff, myself and my two assistants will, always help with whatever we can to get our athletes to reach whatever goals in life that they want to reach. We will always be somebody that will stand in their corner and help them get there.
I love it. Well, Jessie, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast and talking about, your university and the place that you call home, that's close to your home, right? And where you're able to give a future for these athletes and also to, be able to do life alongside these athletes. Sorry, I can't talk. Um, we appreciate it. And you had mentioned a camp that you guys do. So when is the camp for those who may be interested? And I'll link if it's already up, I'll link the registration for it, or at least the website where it could be.
Yeah, so we have our camps, summer camps. The dates are still kind of being finalized. They'll come out most likely in February. But you can find it at blugolds.com and then just on the gymnastics page.
Love it. Well, thank you again, guys, for tuning in to another episode. We had University of Wisconsin Eau Claire's head coach, Jessie DeZiel, kind of talking about the influences in her life, the people that, made an impact, her club coach, her college coach, that really helped guide her as she is going into her 4th season at Eau Claire. And super excited for the success that they are going to have. And also excited for them to really reach that goal of making it to nationals. We want to wish the Eau Claire good luck. And you guys are the Blugolds, correct?
Yep.
So wishing Eau Claire Blugolds good luck this season. Remember to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I'll see you guys on the next episode.